Welcome to a visual journey of the natural world in and around Whistler, BC, or at least my experience with it over the past dozen or so years. Hello, I'm David McComb, and I'm a night sky photographer. And I guess what that means is I like shooting from sunset through the night to sunrise. And that's what I've been doing in Whistler for, as I say, the last 10, 12 years. During this talk, I hope I can show to you Whistler in a different light. And by light, I mean capturing that last light of the day, leading into blue hour, a potential moonrise, the stars and Milky Way moving through the sky, and of course, the northern lights. The night sky visuals you're seeing in the background are time-lapse clips that I've shot over the past number of years. These particular ones are from one of my films called Whistler Seasons. And it, like my other Whistler films and other films, you can find on my website, davidmccomb.com. And they're there to peruse and enjoy at your leisure 24/7. However, before I show and talk to you much more about shooting last light and the night sky around Whistler, I'm going to show you Whistler from a vantage point that I just love to experience it from. And that's from the sky, and in particular from a helicopter and a drone. Well, we might as well start with an aerial photo of Black Tusk, as it's pretty darn iconic in the area. On this shoot, I went up specifically to shoot the moon as it was rising over Black Tusk and was fortunate enough to capture it perfectly. And when you're up there, even if you're up there to shoot the moon, there's a lot of other perspectives to capture. This is Black Tusk from much higher up, looking down towards Howe Sound as the sun is setting. And in the distance, there's Mount Baker, which if you're in Vancouver, you can, on a clear day, you can see it quite clearly. And this is all part of the Coast Mountain Range in the foreground. And when you're up in the air in the summer, it looks quite different and equally majestic. Look at the greens, the shades, the browns, the river flowing, still some snow, and we're looking west here. And there's Garibaldi Lake in Garibaldi Provincial Park. And of course, in the distance, Black Tusk. And here's a shot of it in the winter, of course, with a nice, fresh, white blanket of snow around its base. Pretty hard to beat. And then if I switch around, have a helicopter fly in a different direction, we can shoot Black Tusk facing east. And here it is looking pretty gnarly, which I love. And sometimes when you get cloud layers, you direct the helicopter pilot to sort of move in between them so you can get a different perspective, and it just looks so different from so many different angles. And leaving that theme for a little while, here's just another example of trying to get up there to get the Coast Mountain Range with the moon rising, and you get the nice shades of pink there. On this day, I was shooting something else, but it was really kind of cool to see the peak-to-peak gondola popping out with the red against the white snowy background. And here we have a sunset looking down towards Howe Sound, and we got pretty lucky that day with the orange and the yellows lighting up the sky. And here we go again, same kind of angle, but we're getting lucky with a little bit of a cloud bank below. Always trying to do some of the cloud layers into it. And of course, there's so many perspectives. Again, Howe Sound with the snow and just shaking it up with a bit of a vertical shot. This is actually one of my favorite shots as it's a bit moodier. And we get the cloud layers wisping up again over Howe Sound. Really quite special to see it looking like that. Another aerial theme is to shoot the Dua Mountains, Blackcomb on the left and Whistler on the right from the air. You can see some of the lakes and golf courses in the valley below. Looks pretty magnificent and green. That said, it's hard to beat a nice fresh blanket of snow over the valley with some clouds in the sky. It's what a lot of people are there for the skiing. Again, the same idea, not necessarily the same day, but a fresh blanket of snow. And you can see again the lakes and the golf courses covered in snow in these shots. And backing up a little bit further to the south, and now we're looking kind of to the northeast, and you're getting that last light just touching the peaks of the mountains. And shooting more towards the east, we're getting an alpenglow. And always love a nice alpenglow over the mountains. But you start to get some perspective when you back up that Whistler and Blackcomb are not alone out there. And there we have it, another moonshot over Wedge Mountain in the distance and Creekside Village on the bottom of the photo. And again, Creekside with the lights of the village coming on, and you can see some of the skating rinks that are being shoveled off in the foreground. And again, another Creekside shot with the lights. That's Needle Lake Lodge at the bottom there. Just looking spectacular in white and light. And of course, you have to shoot the main part of the village. You got Blackcomb on the left, Whistler on the right, and the village at the bottom. And the sliding centers above there as well. And while we're up there, it's nice to grab a few details. There's the skating rink and people down below having a blast while we're up in the air having a blast as well. And there's the Fairmont Chateau Whistler at the bottom of the run at Blackcomb. Again, a blanket of white. Always going up when there's a blanket of white. And here's a pretty special photo, special to me anyway, of Whistler and Blackcomb and the Whistler Valley. This was shot from a helicopter, about 11 to 11,500 feet in the air. And it took, I guess, a few tries and a few years to actually capture the moment the way I wanted to capture it. And this is the result. Some people ask why the curve in on the horizon. Well, we didn't get that high so that you could see the Earth's curvature. The effect is through a fisheye lens, but I wanted to introduce that effect that it felt like we were higher than we actually were. Well, it's time to come back down closer to good old planet Earth, and this is a drone shot, shot in the summer. And you'll soon see that it's going to transition to a winter shot. Isn't that kind of interesting? It took a couple of tries to get that over a couple of seasons, but it was fun to get that transition from summer to winter. And the rest of the photos in this presentation will be shot from the ground, I think without exception. Of course, these photos are Black Tusk, shot with a long lens, probably at least 400 millimeters, maybe to 500. And you can see the nice snow-covered mountains, which I would love to capture. This is more of a summer shot with Black Tusk in the background. Again, with some nice, moody last light of the day. The sun will probably be setting here in about 20 minutes. And here the sun is probably just set. We're just getting that last light, that pink glow from the peak of Whistler. Again, we're on the top of Whistler Mountain capturing a sunset. And I used to do, when times were different, I would do these photography tours that we allow us to get the last light of the day from Whistler Mountain. Again, from Whistler Mountain, again with a long lens in this case. Some pretty cool mountains in the distance. When you sort of zoom in with a long lens like this one, you can get some cool effects. But sometimes I go for a hike, and this is up Rainbow Mountain, and in the distance you can see Whistler and Blackcomb, and what a sky that was. And occasionally not occasionally, I like to go there often, but I only do go there occasionally, into Garibaldi Provincial Park. And here's a photo of Black Tusk on one of those hikes. And again, in Garibaldi Provincial Park, Garibaldi Lake, Table Mountain in the distance, just spectacular. This is another sunrise, which you saw before in a time-lapse clip, and here it is again. It was just spectacular. That morning was just mind-blowing. That sunrise like this went on for, felt like 20 minutes. And every once in a while you get a sky that just makes you stand there in awe. And this was one of them, again from the peak of Whistler Mountain. And one day we had this big storm which didn't look like it was going to clear, and then it did. And this was the result. It was just spectacular, the shades of orange and yellows. And then there was that day we got lightning. I've dreamt about getting some nice lightning shots in Whistler because we just don't get them that often. And then one day at the end of one of the photography tours, the storm broke out and I got the shot. Pretty exciting. One of my favorite things to do in the winter is to go up the mountain and just sit around and wait for the sun to set and see what happens. And this is the kind of thing you can get. This doesn't happen all the time, but when it does happen, it's pretty darn spectacular. These are frames from time-lapse clips, actually, including this one. And again, you can see some of these scenes play out as time lapses in some of my short films about Whistler. The sky colors just are ever-changing, and like this one just morphed into different shades of pinks and blues, and here it is again. It was a sunset that probably went on, it felt like, for half an hour, which is really unusual. One of the things I like to do is to try to get myself positioned between the cloud layers. So here I'm on the peak of Whistler, and there's a cloud layer below and above. And this is what you get. Pretty spectacular. These next two photos are of a Whistler Mountain sunset, whereas the sun disappeared behind the mountains in the distance. The snow went this incredible shade of pink and gold. It was really something quite wondrous. Well, it's time to bring you out of the light and into the dark. I just love photographing Whistler and the area at night, and this is the kind of thing you can get. Snow, the lights come on in the valley, you get a little bit of cloud action. It just is a magical way to experience Whistler and many areas, in fact. This is a shot from across the valley looking at Whistler and Blackcomb. Of course, with Blackcomb on the left, Whistler on the right, and a nice fresh blanket of snow, just making things look spectacular. And the summer brings Milky Way season. The core of the galaxy is much stronger and more visible during the summer into the fall, and that's when I get out there and really try to get lots of great Milky Way shots and time lapses as they pass over Blackcomb and Whistler. This is a shot from probably about a 1 hour hike, depending on the snow conditions, and it's a compilation of probably 30 or 40 photos that I've stitched together to create that comet effect. This, I guess, so-called comet effect is a compilation of probably 300 to 400 photos thus the longer streaks in the sky. But as well, you get the lights of the grooming machines on the mountain that all blend together to create the streaks passing over Whistler and Blackcomb. Here's an image that took a bit of late night grunt work to get, let's say. This cloud inversion I could see happening in the valley, and around midnight, after I had some company over, I decided to hike up the mountain. It took about 2 hours to get up to this position, but once you got above the cloud layer, the view was pretty darn spectacular. Continue with the theme of shooting Whistler at night. Here's a winter shot from across the valley, probably about 3,000 to 4,000 feet above the valley floor. And here's a shot from one of my easier spots to get to, probably a 1 to 2 hour hike. And yeah, Whistler and Blackcomb looking pretty darn spectacular. And here's a zoomed in shot from that same spot where you can see the village and the Whistler Sliding Center to the right. I think this is probably my favorite spot to ever shot the mountains in the valley. This was a real special night, and it was cold, probably minus 20, but it made for some really good light. And then the next morning, it was a pretty nice sunrise with a little bit of color in the sky, and it was just an amazing and wonderful, memorable experience. Whistler is blessed to be right next door to an amazing provincial park. This is Garibaldi Provincial Park, and these are images from the park at night. This is up at Elfin Lakes, which is a great place to hike up to, and I've been up there a few times over the years. And on one particular night, we got the Northern Lights to come out. That was just amazing. I was basically sat out beside this lake all night long and just watched scenes like this unfold. And then, of course, I have to get out there in the winter, and the lake was freezing up overnight, which was kind of a cool thing to see. You could actually see it progressively freezing. And of course, Black Tusk is part of the park, and I've spent many a night in the park next to Black Tusk, which is pretty special. And then when you turn around, this is the view you get. You're looking back towards Whistler here, but you can see a hint of the Northern Lights, and this is what it looked like. And then there was that time that I was hanging out next to Black Tusk when the Northern Lights came out in all their glory. It was pretty magical. And of course, I was hanging out to the south, so it's an angle of Black Tusk you don't always see. And of course, I just love shooting the Milky Way as it passes over Black Tusk. This is a frame from one of my time lapses, which you can see in one of my movies. And here's just a deep, dark, starry night over Russet Lake, and that's Thistle Peak to the left. Really spectacular spot. And one of my favorite spots to shoot in Garibaldi Provincial Park is this overlook of Garibaldi Lake. Just an amazing way to spend the night. And one of the things I just love to do is what I call do a moon chase. And this is from the Alpine in Whistler. This is from the Valley. It's actually at Rainbow Park. And this is from across the valley, other side of Whistler. And the moon is always doing some crazy, beautiful things, especially when the clouds are out. This is from Garibaldi Provincial Park. And whether it's a moon rise or a moon set, equally spectacular. And here's a shot from the valley. So it's just about figuring out when the moon's coming up and just getting out there. I like shooting either the full moon or new moons. Usually I like to try to get them so the moons are close to the horizon, so you get some foreground as well. This rainbow effect just before the moon rose was pretty amazing. And that's, of course, Whistler Mountain. And of course, it is always fun to shoot the moon from a helicopter. This was, of course, during the winter, lots of snow, and we went up specifically to shoot the moonrise as it rose above the Coast Mountain Range around Whistler. And now I'll show you a number of examples of the full moon as it was rising over Whistler. The variety of scenes you can get are just extraordinary. Of course, here's something over Whistler Mountain. Here's a shot of a total lunar eclipse, which is a pretty spectacular sight. A big red blood moon is really special. Here's a shot from the Whistler Alpine during an alpenglow. So you get the pink colors, the full moon, love the green in the foreground. And here's the moon just about to rise over Whistler. It's actually one of my favorite places to shoot the moonrise is over Whistler Mountain because you get a lot of different things to work with there. There's another angle. You get the moon, the clouds. Most of these are shot with a long lens, at least 200 millimeters up to 400 to 500 millimeters. And that's why in some of the shots the moon looks so large. It's basically the big lens that helps create that effect. So during a typical moon chase, I'll position myself on the west side of the valley, wait for the moon to rise, get my shots, and then actually move closer and closer to the mountains. So I effectively get the moon rising maybe 2 or 3 times over the course of an hour until I'm just so close to the mountains that I can't get that effect anymore. And while most of my chases involve capturing the moon rising over the mountains, on occasion I capture the moon setting on the west side. And here's an example, as is this one here. This was in a lake little outside of Whistler. Spent 2 nights here and captured this beautiful setting moon with the Milky Way, which I always love that combination. And here's a shot of the moon just resting on top of the gondola cables. This was shot from Whistler Mountain. This is one of my favorite shots of the moon, in part because it's a shot of the total lunar eclipse. As well, I was on Blackcomb Mountain hanging out with a couple of close friends, and it was just a special moment. Got up about 2:30 in the morning and shot it until this moon settled into those clouds. The rest of this presentation will be focused pretty much on the deep, dark, beautiful night sky in and around Whistler, as in this example of the Milky Way passing over the ski lift with a little bit of the northern lights in the background. That said, it's time to show you how big and wonderful the northern lights can get. I mean, even check out the green reflection in Alta Lake down below. I'm often asked how often I get to experience the northern lights in Whistler, and in all honesty, it's not that frequent. Probably my best year, I got to see it maybe 15 to 20 times, and in that period maybe only a handful of times were this spectacular. But look at this, when you're above the clouds and the northern lights come out, it's pretty hard to beat. And here's an example of what some people call a picket fence aurora, and this is on Whistler Mountain again, and I've only seen it a couple of times, but this was one of them. So when the northern lights or aurora aren't out, I'm of course trying to shoot the starry nights and of course the Milky Way. And here's me doing a little bit of a selfie. And here as well. Sometimes nice just to put a person in the shot just to give a sense of perspective and how vast this wonderful universe is. And here's a valley shot of the Milky Way as it's rising over Whistler Mountain in the background. And of course, why not try to get both the Milky Way and the northern lights in the same shot? And yours truly, of course, on occasion. This is also from the peak of Whistler Mountain and looking north, so the Milky Way is not as visible at the north end as it would be at the south end. And every once in a while you get a really nice surprise when a meteor blasts through the sky like this one did. And then this one, while I was on Whistler during this spectacular Northern Lights display. And here's a little bit of a time lapse of it. And as I said before, there's nothing quite like being above the clouds. It just adds a whole other dimension to the flow of the time lapse. And continuing with the theme of Northern Lights from Whistler Mountain, here's a pretty incredible example, as you can see right here. The purples came out in this time lapse, which I rarely see, so that was really fun. And I'm often asked how well you can see the colors of the Northern Lights with the naked eye. And the short answer is you can't see them as well as you can with a longer exposure on the camera. But when it's a big show, believe me, it's something special. This shot of the Milky Way and the Northern Lights also includes on the right-hand side the Andromeda Galaxy, that little dish over there. And one thing I can say for certain is that I never tire of seeing and experiencing the Northern Lights. Once I saw it the first time, I needed to see it again and again. And that's why I'm always out there trying to see it again and again. And this is why. Well, besides the obvious beauty of shooting from the Alpine, as you can see from these photos, it's a pretty wondrous location to shoot the night sky. A big advantage is there's less light pollution. So you just get to experience the stars, the Milky Way, the Northern Lights in a much more vivid manner. You know, looking down the village here, you can just see there's more lights down there. And while you can experience the Milky Way from the valley bottom, it's just a bit more challenging. The big disadvantage of shooting from up here in the winter especially is that it's cold. And I might be up here for hours standing out in the cold by myself with the wind, and at some point I get so cold that I just have to call it quits, and I put my skis back on and head down the mountain for a warm hot chocolate. And yes, even though it is more of a challenge to shoot the Northern Lights and the Milky Way and the night sky in general from the valley floor, when the conditions are right, like here, it is so worth it. What I especially like is to shoot the reflections of the Northern Lights in the various lakes. This is shot at Alta Lake, and there's me being a bit of a poser. And I go there quite often when the conditions are like this. This particular night was extraordinary. The Northern Lights were straight overhead, and as you can see here with a fisheye, it went really high in the sky, which is unusual for the Northern Lights this far south. But when it happens, wow. This photo I call Puff the Magic Dragon. I guess you can figure out why from that nice little cloud over top of Mount Currie. This is one of those nights where it was a combination of the aurora and the clouds that made it really special. And for fun, this is one of the first nights I ever experienced the Northern Lights in Whistler, and pretty well this night got me hooked. This last photo is of the Whistler Valley, and it's special in the sense that it was shot during the 2010 Paralympic Games. And they were doing their practicing for the closing ceremonies and the spotlights going. So knowing that they would be doing this, I went up the mountain with a family member, and we spent a couple hours out there just enjoying the night sky and watching the spotlights go back and forth, and then afterwards we hiked back down for some more hot chocolate. I thought I should end this presentation of the natural, wondrous, and deep sky world around Whistler, or at least my perspective on it, with some time-lapse clips I've put together over the years. For those of you who don't know what a time-lapse is, basically it's a compilation of a whole bunch of photos you put together, and from those photos you create a short clip. So what I would do is go out, set up my tripod, and then take a whole bunch of photos, maybe 200, 300, 400 photos over the course of 1 to a few hours. And then afterwards go back to the computer, compile them, put them all together, and use those individual frames to create these clips. So with all these time lapses, what you're seeing are individual photos that I've taken one right after the other. Sometimes these photos are 5 seconds apart, sometimes 25 seconds apart, but the key is they're just taken one right after the other. And then you basically end up with a scene that looks like it's been sped up. The following Milky Way shots are all from my short film Dusk to Dawn. Most of them have been taken in the spring to summer. You can even see some of the groomers there still working away in late spring. And you can see the core of the Milky Way is getting fairly visible and strong. And it's sort of nice that you can even pick up some reflections in the water. Thank you for spending some time with me as I presented just a little of what I feel is a wondrous natural world around Whistler. And I hope you have a chance to experience a bit of it in person one day. In the meantime, here are a few moments from my short film, Whistler Deep Sky 2. Be well and don't forget to look up.